Morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I hope you are able to chat today. Today we will cover. Hey, good morning. Thanks for confirming. Today we will cover the basic plugins, the confusion, why plugins needed, why C# code is required. So we will start today deep and drive. Good morning. Related to the plugins, basic plugins. So anyhow, Microsoft already developed this complete CRM application. Then why we need additional development? Why this additional logic is needed? What types of code we have to write here? Which particular stage we have to write the code? Those are many issues that we are facing even if we know the plugin registration tool, and sometimes we have to use here XRM toolbox, how to debug our C# or plugin code, and even how to write our custom logic, and even what is the easiest way how to debug our plugin code here. Good morning. So all those basic questions, and even 90% if you are as a pure core developers, so most of the interview questions coming from these specific topics. So this is very useful for everyone, and it will help you to even if you are a developer, you will identify like, oh, those types of issue even, and even why we are utilizing this particular code. So all those your small query, small doubts here, maybe you will get more clarity. Not only today's session, maybe next 2 3 consecutive sessions you will get more clarity. Most of the developers, they have other exposures, like they can write business rule, they can write javascript, basic javascript. Even if we don't have more understanding, more coding level exposure, so at least we can survive with the help of either business rule, or maybe we can do some power automate kind of things without writing any hard code logic. But this is pure core development part which we will start today. So today is first class, so you have to do some your homework also, your basic setup which required in your personal laptop, which I can, even if I can do that development, but it will not help you how to debug, how to work, even very basic, very beginning level I will tell you, and even how to start the development for as a plugins part. So first of all, we have to understand why plugins are needed. So I hope you all are understand why plugins, the agenda of this particular topics, agenda of this specific sessions, why plugins are needed. So as of now, till now, we already covered JavaScript. So we all know we have to use some validations, which we have to reduce the load of the our application server. So that's why, because we have to reduce our application server load, and even to reduce server side code. So what is the server side code actually? So we understand client side scripting, we know how to write JavaScript, and what is the purpose of JavaScript. Even with the help of JavaScript, we can perform most of the action whatever we can do with the help of Java, these plugins. But why this particular code is written in the server side, we will cover all those topics, all those clarification you will get today. So till now you are good. Are you facing any issue in your previous session? Let me quickly check here. Query or your confusion, your clarification is needed. Otherwise, we will cover today's topic related to dynamic CRM. This plugin execution pipeline. So every interviewer, if you joined any interview, you will get one question every time. Hey, do you have any idea related to plugin execution pipeline? What is plugin execution pipeline? So you should understand what is the plugin execution pipeline. Here, today's session, I will tell you first basic things so that you can understand the terminology. So you understand we are working in a web-based application. Mostly, most of the because this is web-based application, either it is a on-premise or either it is a online application. But this is a web-based application. Web-based application means it is located somewhere and we are accessing that application, and only the center server is one place, and we are connecting that center database with multiple client side. It means from different devices. It could be laptop, it could be your mobile based application, it could be anything, but we are connecting to the centralized applications, centralized database. So what is the benefit here to centralized database or centralized application? So that we have real time data. If one person is connecting from US, one person is connecting from Australia region, data will be same. There is no gap. We will get the 100% real time data. So that is the benefit here. So Microsoft is developed this application, complete entire application. So the platform here is for this application. Microsoft is working on their own platform. So we should know the backend is SQL Server, and front end they have developed in that manner. It is supported even some other technology as well, but the base framework here is .NET. So .NET framework, if we are using here, so we are connecting this .NET framework with, and we are writing our logic here with the help of C# code. Let me share my screen here and we will understand more. Let me open the plugin execution pipeline also. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, first of all, what is plugin execution pipeline? Let me give you very see here we have four stages in plugin execution pipeline. So what happened? Microsoft has given four different stage. Either you can write your code in four different stage. Four different stage. I will tell you in details why four different stage. One stage is pre-validation. Second one is pre-operation. Third one is main or core operation. And fourth one is post-operation. So what is the meaning of those four stage here? So if you have to write anything related to your server side code, So you have to design your code based on those four stages. Like suppose my code will run in which specific stage. So first of all, you have to understand those four stages. Four stage means first is, let me just note down here. Second, third, and fourth. First stage here is we have pre-validation. Code here is, we can say code is 10, stage is 10 here, and main operation, and last one here is post operation. Okay, so I will tell you here those four stages. So first of all, forget about this particular stage, not permitted. So you cannot register your plugins, you cannot register your plugin here. Microsoft never give you option to write your plugin here in this particular stage. Like Microsoft told, hey, I am the owner of this application. I will never give you option to write or change anything here in this particular stage. Why? Because there is something, the base core rule has to be run. It is not like you can change everything. Microsoft has Microsoft created one application. They have given you some additional option so that you can enhance that application. It is not like you can change everything. Microsoft given you option to enhance your this application. You cannot change everything. That's why they restricted, you cannot register your plugin here in this particular stage, right? So let me show you here what is the meaning of here four different stages, right? So suppose we have here this particular stage is, Microsoft already taken, you cannot do anything. So only we have three stages. Like either you can write your plugin here or in this particular stage. So I will tell you one thing. Suppose if you are going to create something, you are going to create a record in database, so it means that record is creating. So think about that scenario. Like if you are going to create something, so if you want to perform some action after creating that record, so what could be the scenario? Like suppose if there is a record is creating, you want to send one email. So once the record is created, then only you want to send that email notification. It is not like record is not even before creating the record, you can send that email. Either you get that email or that error that record is not created. So even you already sent that notification, hey, there is a account is created and you have to approve it. So how you can registered or you can perform that action even before creating that particular record? So there are some conditions, there are some opportunity, or there are some option even if you have to perform after completing some activity. That is crystal clear here. You have to understand this particular option. You got it? So suppose if you need to send some notification, like hey, this particular record is created, you have to approve it, and you need to send a link also in that particular email body, so that user can click in that particular email notification and you can perform any other option. But if you have written that logic in even before creating that record. So even you don't know the record URL because record is not created. So how you are opening that particular record? So that is also a another concern here. So let me open our training trial environment. Where is that one? Okay, here let me close this. So my question here is, suppose if we need to send a notification and we need to send a link also. So how to send that link? So I will tell you even how to create a dynamic link so that we can add that link into our email body. So there are some scenario here. I'm giving you some additional information so that at least you should understand those points. Suppose if you want to send a link, like suppose this is a contact link, so just open that one, and if you have that link, so what we are having in this particular link, this record link, so we have some parameters into this particular record. So this is a fixed link, fixed URL, right, into your link. Here we have that app ID. App ID is nothing. App ID is this one. This is sales hub. This sales app ID is here. So that this particular record will open into this sales app ID. Okay. Force UI equal to yes. So it means this is the here this particular UI. This UI if we have, it means this particular UI we have to open. So run debug equal to true, it means we, this is the additional point we have here. So if run debug equal to true, here we can see this command bar, but this is not needed. So page type equal to entity record. So it means this record is open here, and this is related to this specific one record open. It is not like view. This is a record open. So every parameter is having specific information here from contact entity. And here we have this contact ID. So ID means we have to open this particular contact. So a dynamic URL, this particular link. How? Like I need to just change this GUID. For example, if I want to open a another contact, how I can open this another contact? So suppose I can copy this particular link here, this record GUID, and even I can dynamically create that. To create that link, how you are going to create a link? This is very simple. Here I can even copy this GUID and I can add that to control. So likewise, URL here for different record. So for creating that particular link, we need a record ID. So if we need to create a dynamic record ID, so we should require a at least record should be created, that only we can send that link. So there are some scenario where you can perform some logic in this particular stage, and sometimes you have to write some logic here as well so that you can save the execution time. So what it mean here, if suppose there are some scenario, for example, if you are going to create some record and one example I will give. So this is clear. Like suppose you cannot even send a email notification before creating the record. So some operation, some action we have to perform here in the post operation, and some operation like suppose we have to option. Can you hear me? Are you able to see my screen? Some candidates are pinging here. My screen is not visible. No, I'm asking, are you able to see my screen or not? Yes or no? Let me reshare again. Now, now tell me, are you able to see? Okay, fine, perfect. Okay, so now suppose, so there are some stage, some scenario you can perform some logic even after. So there are some dependency. Either record is creating some action you can perform before creating your action. Suppose if you are performing different action, what types of action you can perform with the help of either plugin or in CRM application, what types of action you are performing mostly? Can you tell me? You are performing in the CRM application either create, update, modify, or delete operation, right? Suppose if you are creating a record, so there are some action you have to perform. CRUD operation, right? That's right. So CRUD operation, if you are performing, so in create option, so is there any possibility if you are creating a record? So is there any possibility you have to even create, perform some action even in the pre-validation? No, right? So let's get more information here. I will give you more insight like uh, give scenarios based on CRUD operation in plugins execution pipeline example. Okay, so suppose in pre-valid, no. Okay, so here suppose you have to perform a create operation. So it means you are creating a record, suppose, and here validation before record creation. So stage is pre-validation here. Suppose if need to perform or any validation data before creating a record. Suppose if you need to perform some operation even before creating the record. For example, if email id should be there. Without email id you cannot create a lead. That is the validation you need to perform here. So how you have to perform that particular validation, and in which particular stage you need to perform that validation? So is there any possibility you have to check that validation in post operation, right or not? Why? Because if record is created, what is the purpose of validating in post operation? So you have to restrict user to create that record. So that validation you have to write in pre-operation. So I asked some any one of my team member like, hey, I need to write a validation, a C sharp or plugin validation where you have to restrict user to create a record without you have to restrict a user to create a record even if record is not having email id. So where you have to write that logic, pre operation or post operation? Obviously pre validation, pre operation. Why pre operation? Because if we need to, if record is created, what is the purpose of validating that particular record? So anything if we need to validate before creating that one, so that is the one best example that we have, this particular written, that validation we have written here. Stop early, better performance. No database transaction involved here in this particular pre-validation, right? So suppose it is not like pre-operation. We have done this particular one even in the pre-validation operation, pre-validation one. So here there is no transaction involved here. Why transaction involved? What is the meaning of transaction involved here? Transaction involved means if suppose if we need to retrieve some data from the database, be directly checking in the code level itself even if this particular object is containing this particular parameters or not. So if that object we have set it as blank and if this particular parameter is not having data, even here we have two types of validation: DB transaction or without DB transaction. Without DB transaction means even if we have to check something, we have to check something like suppose if I am asking, if we have to sell something, we need to sell something which is having stock in our database, then first we have to check if that stock is there in the database. So that validation we have to do in the pre operation. Why? Because we need to check stock, record stock in our database table. So if we need to perform something in the database level, it means we have written some retrieve query. So we have to write that validation in pre-operation stage. Otherwise, anything which is not required, any database query, any retrieve query, any operation which we can control even in the pre-validation stage. So we have to perform that logic in pre-validation stage. This is very confusing, but suppose most of the interviewer, suppose I'm taking interview for any of the candidate, so I can ask you like, hey, can you explain me plugin execution pipeline and what is the difference between pre-validation pre-operation stage? Even both operation are performing even before main or core operation. So, can you give me one example of pre-validation and can you give me example of pre-operation stage? and when you have to write your code in pre-validation, and when you have to write your code in pre-operation. That is one question I'm asking for any developer, if it is he is joining as a initial stage or he is joining as a 10 year of experience stage. So if you have that clarity, like uh, the purpose of those validation stage, it is not like I cannot write my logic even here itself in pre-operation stage, but that is a additional load. We have to add into the server side. Even we are writing our server side validation, but even we can reduce the server load. Suppose I will give you very very basic example. Suppose there is a, even I have given you some example related to when we are discussing about the JavaScript and server side validation. So we have different codes, like we have local body code like session code, that judiciary system, that state level, and then Supreme Court, High Court level. So suppose there is a sequence event. If you are in Supreme Court, so Supreme Court means you are in here, server side validation or server code you are writing. So in Supreme Court as well, there are some process you have to follow so that you can increase the execution process. So execution process means in you have to perform your logic in a sequential manner. So whatever you can validate in the initial stage, you have to validate in the initial stage, which is taking less time. Suppose in high court, so if one person is going to, you have some hearing after maybe 1 hour or 2 hour, so there is a gatekeeper. So you have to submit your documents, like you have to go with some specific document. So you are going without document, so in the gatekeeper stage only they are asking, do you have those many documents so that your process will begin. So if you have that documents, you have that information, gatekeeper stage only they can ask you, hey, because those documents are not here, go back and collect those information. Without those information you cannot go inside, and your action will not perform. So this is the stage, is previous very pre-validation stage, like gatekeeper. Any in the initial stage, in gate level only they are checking, hey, are you containing, are you having proper information or not. If you have proper information, proper documentation, proper required information, so that your operation perform in this particular stage, or in this particular stage, whatever core operation, it means the code has to be created in the whatever Microsoft has written. But even if you are going to perform some action, so these are the different level of validation. You in the gate level, gatekeeper they can perform, and maybe there is another person in the court level. They are that is called, I'm not able to recall the exact name, but they are asking you, hey, can you come this particular person, and this is the hearing time, and they are checking even before going to the judge. So even in this particular stage also, you have to perform some different action. So these are the different stages. Like before completing your complete action, you have to do some different level of validation. So in this particular stage, so this is low cost execution time. If you need to perform some validation even in the server side, anyhow all those validation we have to perform in the client side itself. But if you cannot perform due to any reason, maybe the data is coming from different system and you are not able to check that particular data, that's why you have written that validation in the server side even itself. Even some code is coming even without information, without additional information, which is anyhow required by the system. Not only the system, because we have designed our system. So those types of validation you have to perform here, which is not required additional checks. Additional checks means here in this particular stage only. Suppose here in this particular stage, in stage one, in the gatekeeper, they can check some documents like, hey, you have your Aadhaar number, you have your PAN number, you have your last hearing information, and those information you can complete and you can go into the next stage. In this particular stage, they are checking, hey, last time in this particular previous hearing, your judge asked you to come with this particular documents, and last time they have written those information, why you have not carried all those information. I have checked all those information in my diary or in this particular register. So those information, without those information you cannot perform, or you have to add those information. Maybe in this particular stage they may check the internal database information. Internal database information means either they have to check uh, associated contact related information, associated account related information. Maybe they have to fetch some information from the different entity, and you have to set that information without creating that particular record or without performing that particular main operation. So in this particular stage, you are under that domain or that particular database. So you can check, you can validate internal logic also. Got it? I hope you understand those particular stage very clear now. No restrict to create before coming to the database, like to restrict the record before creating the database. So suppose even here these are the different stage. Like here pre-validation, like if there is no database related checks you have to validate, you can perform here. If any database checks you need, you have to write your code in this particular stage. Anyhow, Microsoft is not allowing you to perform any logic to register in this particular stage, so you cannot register here. If you have to perform some logic here in this particular stage, for example, suppose if you want to delete a record, and after deleting your record, you have to send one notification. So after completing that activity, if you have to perform some logic, so you can perform that logic even the post operation also. So let's check that particular stage. So Siddharth, what is your question here to restrict the record before committing to the dataverse? Pre-validation here, see, pre-validation, I told you here, pre-validation, if any query, if you cannot perform any checks in the database level in the pre-validation. Pre-operation, you have entire database transaction access. If you have to check any query, suppose one example, if you want to create a loan record, if you are working with any financial and execution entity, and if you need to give loans to the, or you have to give any what we can say order to a customer. So if customer is having a buffer or credit limit, so a customer is having 2 lakh credit limit. So can you send any amount or any details or any product which is having more than 2 lakh? So if you have that check, like you can send any amount, any product which is less than 2 lakh, and you can create a order for this particular one. So in that case, you have to check the that particular person credit limit, then only you are going to create that particular order. So in that case, you have to check before you need to create, you have to check in the database level. So you cannot perform that logic in the pre-validation, because you have to maintain that information. Even if you have that already here in this particular order, so you need not to check in the database level. So you can perform that logic here. Otherwise, you have to perform that logic in the pre-operation, where you need to check something in the database level, right? Clear in this particular stage? So like set default value before save. So in pre-operation, I will tell you in this very common example here. Suppose if you are going to create a record. So if you are going to create a record, and based on the some information, you need to set something even before creating that record. So we have two options here. Suppose if you don't want to perform that logic here, so what happen? Even once record is created, you need to set that logic here in this particular post operation. So what happen? First you have to create a record. First option, first create record with basic information, and then point to update one field. Update one field means update account rating code. Update account rating code for that particular same record. So what happened here? So there is a two request creating here. First, you have to create that record, and with the same record, you need to update the same record. But a smart person, if you know something, so what you have to do, even before creating that one, if even same request before creating that record, you can set that request. What is the harm here? You have to write this particular code. Even you can set that information in pre-operation stage, and only you have to write only one here. If you need to perform that logic here, so what you have to do, you have to create a request, and you have to update that one into the post operation. But here only set account rating code and create. So what is the benefit here? So in the same request, same record, only one transaction is happen here. So we are saving one transaction for performing one specific logic. So suppose in daily basis, if you have to create 50,000 lead record, so you have saved 50,000 additional load request to the server if you have written this small change. So that's why sometimes you have to optimize your code and optimize your logic, so that you can reduce the server load. Anyhow, the logic is implemented here, everything is working fine. Why? Because there is a additional request only we are creating now. So and logic is executing and everything is working fine. So what is the load here? Some of the candidate, they may ask, hey, anyhow output of this particular requirement is same. Then what is the load here? Additional load here. Why you are taking additional load? Business logic is working fine. Now tell me, what is the here? What is the wrong here? I have written a logic here which is completing your requirement. Then what is the bad thing here? Bad thing here is you are creating a additional load into the server. In a peak load or peak time, you are giving a additional load to the server. So why I'm telling you, suppose if there is a person, you have to go to third floor, and there is a two things. So you have to send two small things, 1 kg, load, you have to shift to ground floor to third floor. So there is one person. So one person, you ask someone, hey, we have to shift those 2 kg into third floor. So one person is, doing like that. One item is taking, going to the third floor, and then coming back and taking one additional item and going into the third floor. And another person is coming, he's taking both the item at the same time and going into third floor and doing in the same time. Even the execution or the goal of the task is completed with both the persons, but the methodology or the execution time is totally different. That's the reason here performance comes into the picture when there is a additional loads coming into the server side. Here is your understanding comes into the pictures. When in which particular stage you have to write your code so that your code is optimized and your logic will be clear. If your logic clear here, then you can write any I can say any idiot can write code now in a day with the help of AI. But you have to think about that one, like how to write, which particular stage is there, correct stage is there, and what is the benefit here, and which particular stage we have to write our code, right? So you understand pre-operation. Now, suppose core operation, I already tell you don't have any option to write your code to write into the post operation or core operation. Suppose I just want to tell you some step here. So here I will tell you. Here you have three stage here: pre-validation, pre-operation and post-operation. Even you don't have any option to write your code in core operation, right? That's the reason I told you we have pre-validation, pre-operation and post here, post-operation. Now, here third scenario here, you understand here pre-operation, pre-validation we already covered, pre-validation, pre-operation we covered here, and now let's discuss about post-operation. So post-operation here is async perform here. Okay, I will tell you sync or async also. Push new load lead to the external API. Why post-operation? Record is already created. Async avoid slowing down users. So here, suppose you have to write or you have to send some data. Suppose there is a integration in your system. If you need to call one API after a lead is created, right? So I'm saying we have here dynamic CRM D365 D365 CRM here we have, and there is a additional system here, maybe their internal system or maybe any central system, centralized system also there here. So there is a external application also here. So you have a requirement whenever a lead record is creating into your dynamic CRM, you need to send back to the external system also that same lead. So here you need to send to that particular lead here also. Okay, so I don't think so we can do that one. Okay. So you need to send that to the external system. Whenever a lead record is creating, you need to send that to the external system. So when you have to write that particular logic here, you need to write that logic even in the once record is creating, then only you are sending back to the system. Why you have written here? Because if you need to perform some logic even after creating here, so in the backend that particular additional logic is running in the backend. So you have to write that logic even in the post operation, not in the pre-operation or pre-validation. If you are going to send or write that logic even in the pre-operation, so even we are not sure even if that record is creating or not creating. If there is any additional issue, maybe there are some internal error is coming during this particular core operation, so we are not sure. That's why we have written our logic even in the post creating that particular logic. So our understanding should be clear here. So suppose if there are some requirement which we have to perform into our system, then that types of logic we have to perform in post operation, right? So this is the basic of our plugin execution pipeline. So there are also sync or async operation we have here. I will tell you, but here there are certain basic logics that we have to implement here. Okay, so here these are the stage I have showcased here, but what types of requirement we may have into the system? Because uh, some of the candidate they may ask, CRM application is already developed, then why we have to write a complex logic like C sharp? Why that additional code is needed here? Application is running fine. Okay, application is running fine. The base logic, base code, and the some of the candidate, there are some additional requirement also here. Suppose there is a passionate person like he buy a Thar. So Mahindra given a basic accessories to that particular Thar, but there are some passionate person. They are increasing features in Thar like anything. They are removing their basic features whatever we are having, like there is a standard dashboard is there. There are some additional lights, and there are some additional here music system they are adding. They are additional features they are adding or they are extending into their basic features whatever they are buying. So the base product Microsoft is giving, that is called vanilla CRM. So if someone want to extend the feature why whatever Microsoft is giving, so that capability we are having as a developer, and we are enhancing their core features with having some limitations. Like it is not like you can modify Thar like anything. You can modify a Thar and you can create a aeroplane, or you can create a car like Ferrari or Bugatti like anything. You have to do customization in such a manner so that Thar become a Thar only. It is not like you can customize this application like you have designed this application like a .NET based application only. So whatever Microsoft has given you some extensibility, you can extend within the terminology like whatever Microsoft has given. So how to extend dynamic CRM capability with the help of plugin code? That's why if some additional feature you need to extend, how to extend that one. That's why you need to learn C sharp, the basic plugins code. And we have certain stage here, like we can write our logic here for some validation. We can write some validation here in this particular stage, like if we want to check something in database, like suppose if we need to perform some logic in the database level, like card operation if we need to perform, so we can perform here as well as here also. So we have to take a decision, like if we need to perform any database related logic, we have to write before performing that logic or after performing that logic. Based on the condition to condition, we have to take a decision here. But related to database query, if we need to retrieve or we need to perform any action from the database, we have to write our logic here. For any simple logic or any simple validation which is not needed any database transaction, we have to write our logic here, right? So with the help of C sharp, how to retrieve data from the database, how to create a record from the C sharp, how to delete that record from the database, how to update that record from the database with the help of C sharp. That part we will learn during this C sharp or that plugin session, right? Why we have to learn C sharp? Because we need to perform some logic in this stage. In this stage, what types of logic we will learn here, we will achieve here, that we will learn slowly, slowly. So first of all, our agenda here is very basic plugin. If suppose if we have written some logic, so we need to host that logic, or we need to add, or we have to deploy that logic into dynamic CRM, so that it is not like we have written some logic, so how to integrate that one, that is also another option. So the base logic, very basic logic, if we need to perform, we need to add any validation. So we should know which particular stage we have to register that logic. If we need to validate something, we need to register here. If we need to perform some logic into the database level before creating that record, we have to register that code here. We have to, if we have to perform some logic even after performing our core operation or whatever the logic we have here, so we have to perform that logic here. That is clear. But now how to retrieve or how to connect or how to debug that part, that we will learn slowly, slowly, but that is our main purpose. So to retrieve, to perform that logic, to play with our C sharp code, so we should understand how to create record in with the help of C sharp, or with the help of plugin. We should know how to update, how to retrieve. Inside retrieve, we have multiple options, like either we have to retrieve single retrieve or retrieve multiple. If we have to do retrieve or single retrieve, we should know the record GUID. The logic is same, whatever we already discussed. So if we have record GUID, we know the record GUID. So we have to retrieve even the other information. So suppose even if we have lead GUID, if we have, lead id, and even if we need to retrieve lead mobile number, father name, mother name, whatever information if we need to retrieve, and we have lead id, so we can retrieve single. And if we have other information, for example, we are saying, hey, based on the email id we need to retrieve the information, so we have to use retrieve multiple. So we should know here if we need to retrieve single or retrieve multiple, or how we have to do the same logic whatever we have here, but we should know how to write that particular. So even if we need to retrieve single or we need to retrieve multiple, so we have multiple option here. Either we can create a dynamic query, or either we can create a fetch XML based query. So based on those different conditions here we have to retrieve, but we should know how to perform that logic. So we first option we have here, how to play with those particular record loud. If I need to retrieve record from database, how to retrieve that one. So we will learn how to retrieve all those, or how to play around those card operation. So tomorrow I will create a console application so that you should quickly debug that one, and you can quickly build your query, or you can quickly write your logic. Why? Because to debugging your logic, you're debugging your code in the plugin side, it will take some time. But I will give you some example, some easy way how to build your complete your complex logic in console based application, and how to convert that one into plugin side so that you can host quickly into dynamic CRM side. Correct? So this is very basic information you should know before starting your plugin side information. Hope it's clear for everyone. Building the logic is very complex task. This is not that much easy, brother. So you have to spend some more time. This is most complex logic we have here in dynamic CRM. If you understand that logic, if you get more information, more expertise in this particular area, no one beat here, like you cannot clear any interview. I will give you assurance, like once you complete this particular topics, so you have most more understanding. Like if someone asking you, hey, what is the here benefit here for to write our logic in the pre-validation, or for like 70-80% related to the plugins interview questions, you will have understanding, like how to even some of the time, some of the candidate, due to some language barrier, the purpose of that one, but you are not able to translate that information. Which particular topics? Like this is very basic information here. I will give you entire, I will not it is not like I can give you very high level information and just throw all those information and you can learn from internet. We will slowly cover all those topics which will give you more insight here. Once we complete this particular topic, maybe 10 to 15 days it will take, but I will give you a surety, like you will at least you become a developers, and you can handle most of the query here. Even if you try to understand the basic syntax here, how to get that one, just copy paste those items. Like if you have a function to retrieve data, so write your logic in such a manner, you have to pass only attribute collection and the entity name, and you can get the entity collection. That's it. So you should know the schema name, you should know the schema name of fields and the entity name, and you can get the information. More scenario, real time query, real time information I will give you, but it is not like even if first day I will give you all those information, so it will create more confusion for you everyone. I will give you detailed information, detailed knowledge, like practical example I will give you, practical scenario I will give you, so that you can achieve realistic scenario here. Don't worry about that part, but be here, take some rest, and don't think like in 1 or 2 days you will become mastery in this particular topics. I will give you that level of information, that level of knowledge, so that even a newcomers or new person also can get basic understanding. So tomorrow I will give you example how to create a basic console application and how to create a connection string. Very basic. And then I will try to create a function so that you can retrieve data from database with the help of C sharp. And if you have created a function, you have to you, because everyone know how to get the schema name from the tables and the schema name of the columns. Only you need to take care the conversion part. Conversion part means if you have data types of option set, how to convert that option set. If you have lookup data types, how to retrieve data from the lookup type, how to retrieve data from the text, that we but four or five different data types if you have that line of code. So only you need to take reference from those information from your code library. So if you have your own library, you can utilize at least for 2 or 3 months. Once you are doing daily basis practical scenario, if you have some practical real time project, then you can easily get more hands on experience. But even if you have real time exposure, real time project scenario, even if you did not get chance to work on the real project, so it's very difficult even to survive in this particular area. So make sure if you have understanding related to this particular project. Tomorrow, I don't think so. I'm able to, take class, but tomorrow and day after tomorrow, I'm involving in some of the, some important things. I will be traveling in this particular time, so not tomorrow, but Monday we will start from here. But try to learn the topics whatever we have covered so far, so that we can initiate here. But one thing here, don't miss any single class related to the plugins. Even if you miss something, even one day class, so try to cover that particular topics at the same day only, and try to utilize, if you don't have any trial environment, in anyhow any case, try to connect with our internal teams, get that particular trial environment details, and try to do some practice related to this one. It is not like if you are learning here, you are spending your time here, you can learn everything. This is very complex items. Even it is not like I'm only telling everyone know about these particular topics. So try to share that particular session to everyone who really need these particular topics. We'll try to set up some more time even next week, and we'll try to close all those points. I will try to send some interview question related to a plugin here in our discussion area, maybe after this particular session, and you can go through all those items. And even it's better everyone you to get those information. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you so much for your patience, for your learning, for your participation, for your enthusiasm here to learn CRM. Even there are many people who want to learn something which will give more additional uh, financial strength. So if you want to get that one, you have to try hard here. Thank you everyone. Thank you so much. Bye, have a good weekend. Thank you bro. Bye.